I'm still waiting for your questions. If you have questions, except you don't have any question, but if you have a question, I'm waiting for your questions. Just going over what we have because we will not build this again. So we have the name, version, and the main file. Here we have two scripts. Like I said, the start script is the most important script. You must have a start script. Now you can decide to leave out this one, is your choice. And you must have a start script where you are asking Node to run your app like that. And then you can add your dev script if you want. What this is doing is it's helping you restart your server. Okay, sorry about that. So here we have keywords, author, license, and the dependencies. Like I said before, these dependencies should be and must be installed as normal dependencies. If you install them as a dev dependencies, they will not run on your server online. They will not run online when you deploy them. But if you have them as dev dependencies, they will only run while you are developing. But when you deploy to the cloud, it will not run there. And I'm also going to teach you how to deploy to the cloud, so don't worry about that. Yes, I was talking about yesterday's videos. Yesterday's video, the videos will always come late, and you should understand. I put in the request if the videos can be sent in immediately. They refuse that the videos must follow a standard. All the videos, not just for backend, but all the videos, cybersecurity, product management, all should follow the same standard. So that is why after the class, I will send in my video. They will edit it before sending it back. That is why it takes a while, maybe 1 or 2. And imagine where you have so many videos from different classes to edit. But they take like Monday to edit and then Tuesdays to send it back. So sorry about the video for yesterday, and that is why I'm doing a little recap, starting with the package.json file. Now we're done with package.json, and the next thing we want to look at is our server.js here. So here in this file, the first thing you need to do is to set up your server. And because we are using Express for our server, that is why we're bringing in Express and storing it inside this variable called Express. And also we'll be using .env because we installed .env. So we're also bringing in .env and we're storing it inside this variable .env. So here we are configuring .env. We'll call this variable down here, which is .env. This is what is inside there, and we're bringing it here and configuring .env. So the reason for configuration is that so that this backend, we know that there is a secret file somewhere. That is why you need to configure .env. Yes. If you want to create a new project and you need your server to run on Express, you must install Express. If you need to use .env, then you must install .env. Now, if you need to use NodeMon, then you must install NodeMon for every project. For every project, so every backend project. Now, one thing about backend is if you learn one backend, you know all the backends. The moment you understand one backend for one particular software, you know all the backend for all softwares. Now that's different from front end. For front end, they might teach you one website. Yes, you know the basic knowledge, and but you can't actually duplicate your front end, but you can duplicate your back end. That's what makes the back end very easy. If you understand back end, you can duplicate your back end. You can look at any back end and you know what's going on in their back end, like that. You don't get GitHub on your system what you need to do is go to your browser, go to github.com, and create an account. So if I hit enter here, it will, because I already have an account, that's why you're seeing my profile here. But if you don't have an account, you should create an account. Enter your email and create an account like that. So you need to first create an account on GitHub. Now, I've not taught you how to use Git on the terminal. I haven't taught that, and there's a reason why I'm avoiding to teach that. The reason is because Git is very, very important. When you are applying for a job, one criteria they will ask you is know how to use Git and GitHub. So if I teach it now, it will just be like we're rushing it and you may not really understand it. It's a very important part of your project. So you can't be a developer without knowing how to use Git with GitHub. But I'm leaving that for later. When you understand a little about the backend, and then I can move on to teach you Git. But for now, to submit your assignment, we just do the drag and drop, the easy way to submit assignments. But I will teach you Git later. So avoid using, install Git. Please install Git, but avoid using it for now. I will teach you how to use it because it's very, very important. That is why I want to take my time to teach it. You can be very good, you can be a very good developer, but if you don't know how to use Git, you will not be hired. So that is why I want to take my time to teach it. Okay, I want to understand what this is for. Installing GH, is this Git, the Git CLI? Are you trying to install the Git CLI? Where is this? Okay, what is this? Yes, Gabriel, there are so many packages you can use depending on the project you are building. You will not use all the packages I will show you. It depends on the project, what you want to do, and I will show you. The videos are not on Google Classroom, they are on YouTube. So if you can follow our YouTube handle and go to Backend, the Backend playlist, you'll find all the videos for Backend. You will find them on YouTube. We're going to talk about all of that later. We will. I'm trying to understand what you mean here. Are you trying to install Git? This is for Linux. Are you trying to install the Git CLI or packages downloaded from GitHub or the GitHub CLI? This, I don't know why you have, this is a preview. I don't know why you're going here. I want to understand why. No. You don't install GitHub. You don't install GitHub. Use your browser now and create a GitHub account. If you install GitHub on your platform, what if you lose a laptop? It means you lost all your codes. So this is GitHub Cloud. You're using this one in the cloud to store all your files. Use this one, github.com. You don't install Git. Leave this one. Or you don't have access. I want to understand. Where is he? Aben, talk to us. Talk to me. Unmute yourself and talk to me. What's the challenge? Aben, unmute yourself. If you can hear me, unmute yourself and talk to me. What's the challenge?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
So am I
Go ahead. Go. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I was trying to install GitHub on my system, but since you've edit out that it's not possible. I know I tried installing on my phone. I have a GitHub app on my phone. So I was thinking I
Oh,
will have same on my laptop, but it's not working.
oh,
But currently, I'm trying to sign in
oh,
as instructed.
all right. Okay. Francis, we're sorry about the network issue. Sorry. Uh, sorry about that. So let's continue. We have installed Git. We are setting our app to run on Express app. Here we are defining our port. So we say the value of our port will come from the process.env file, and there's a variable there called port. This process.env simply means environmental variables that will be here. So for now we have only port, and that is why we have port here. But alternatively, you can fall back to 8,000 if there is no port in the process environment. Now here we are setting our app to listen on the port. Depending on the port number, it should listen and then run a function. What the function will do is to console log for us server is running on that particular port. And we talked about status code. These are informational code from 1,000, from 100 to 101, 102, 103, like that. They are for information. Now these are 200 status code when something is okay, and so on and so forth. Now status code from 300, 301, 302 for redirect. And then 400, anything that has to do with user error, user authentication, user authorization, 400, 401, 402, and so on. Then 500, any error that has to do with the server that is coming from our backend. So here we talked about negation, saying that this here is not equal to this. This is what negation means. So, but I don't know why I left that. We have our first endpoint. This is our first endpoint handling a GET request. And the endpoint here is for post, /post, and then it will run an async function. So in this async function, now we can simplify these things so that it will look neat. I like my backend looking very neat, and I think that is what I will do. So I know that everybody here knows what a function is, but if you don't know what a function is, no problem. So what I will do is I will try simplifying these things by cutting out these functions. Or you know what? I will define a new function somewhere. So what I will do is I will create a new file here and call it my controllers.js. Now, controllers is like for control room and or maybe my engine room, so on and so forth, but I will explain later. So here I will say const handle post request. That is the name of this function, and is a function. You can call it an async function if you want. Let me call it an async function. So what this function will do is just the same thing as this function. The same thing here. So I will copy the response and the request, put it inside here, and whatever is inside the function, I will cut them out and then put it inside this function. So the API is just made up of the endpoint and the function. So instead of adding everything here, you can use any text editor you want, but personally I prefer on my own. Some persons like what's this one? I've forgotten the name of this. There are other this thing you can code with. Yeah, there are sublime tests. There are so many of them. I can't really remember. There is Atom. You can use anyone. There is Vim. Yes, I was going to for Vim. There are people who use Vim. So you can use Vim if you want. So like I was explaining, an API is just the request type, the endpoint, and the function. So what I've done is to extract the function to keep it in a separate file so that we'll have a neat code base. Our code is supposed to be very neat. I'll remove the function. Sorry. So I've removed the function here, and I have the function here. So what I have here is just the function, but this function, I can't call it here. I can't call it here because it's not exported. I need to export it. So what I'll do is export it. How do we export? Module, sorry, not capital letter, module, what are you writing? Dot export is equal to handle post request. Yeah, now I'm exporting this file. So what I can do is copy it and then import it here. So I'll save it. Now, if we have a GET request on this endpoint, this function will run. So that is what makes up an API. An API is just about the type of request, the endpoint, and the function that will handle the request. That's all we have. You can't see my screen. Are you serious? But I'm sharing my screen. I think so. I am. So let me stop sharing and then share again and see if that will solve your problem. Stop sharing, then share again. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen now, and you should be able to see my screen. All right. So we can do the same thing for this one. This is a simple function. We only have this here. Wait. The first one was handle a GET request. Sorry. This is a GET request, not a POST request. So what I'll do is I'll change the name to handle a GET request. And I will export it here and save it. So here I have handle a POST request. So I will create another function. I will create another function here and call this one handle a POST request. Const handle POST request is equal to an async function that will accept the request and the response. And what I have inside this function is just this line. So I will cut it with Ctrl+X, come here, paste it here. But I need to also export this function, otherwise I can't use it. Now, but since I'm exporting this one, in order to export more than one, I will turn this into an object so that I can have more than one function being exported here. So I will put command here and export this other one, handle get post request. So now I'm exporting the two of them from the same file, and I can get that here. So instead of this, I'll remove this function and add handle post request. Save. So here I've simplified this code. I can do the same thing for these ones. You know what? Let's do the same thing. I'll close here and then come here and say const handle patch request is equal to an async function that will accept the request and the response. I want to believe you remember what I said about typing full and typing in half. So you can choose to abbreviate them, but make sure that throughout the function you are using the abbreviated format. But if you choose to type them in full, make sure that throughout that function you are using them in full. So here I have just a patch request. I think it's a patch request. What did I write? Yeah, patch request. I'll put that here and then export it here again. handle patch requests and save. So I'll come back here, remove this function, and then put handle patch requests. So to confirm that all these things are working as usual, we'll open our Postman again to test that to see that they are working. If you have a question, please drop it in the question and answer. I may not be able to come to this class attendance. Please, if you have a question, drop it here. Let me confirm that everything is working. First, I need to run my server. Not here. Yeah, it's here actually. BE2 here. I'll use an external terminal to run my server. So here I will type in npm run dev, and I believe by now you know the script. So I have an error. It's a true error. It says starting node server route.get requires a callback function. So it means that these functions are not exported very well. This is, let's say, handle get request. Oh, no, not that. These functions are not passing well. I'm not exporting them very well, or either I didn't name them very well. So I have controller as a file, module dot export. So I'm not exporting very well. Yes, module dot export is equal to handle. So if I come here, handle get request, why am I getting handle post request dot get request? Where is it? Here. Okay. Let me just change the name to function or FNX. Yeah, that's why. So I'll change this. Dot handle get request. FNX dot handle post request. FNX dot handle patch request. Now you may not see it like this in your own. I think because mine is updated, that is why I'm getting that error. So my server is running. But normally, once you export like this, you should be able to call the name directly. But I think my node has been updated. Yeah, you're also using a current node. So you're using node 21 or 22. So I'm exporting them as an object. That is why I'm actually calling controller first. The name of the file is controller, and I'm storing it inside here called functions. So I have to go function dot this, function dot that, function dot this. And now my server is running. Okay. Yes, class rep, you can do that. You can. There are so many ways to export. Currently, we're going with modules. Each one we're making them modules. So there are so many ways to export. I think you can export like this, but I don't know if it's allowed on your own device. You can actually export like this. This is how I export, but it doesn't work all the time because this is ES6 format of exporting. And as I know as of last year, ES6 has not been implemented in the backend. So which is why we still use the ES5 way of exporting. But this can work. It works for mine if I'm doing a project, but I don't know if it will work for you. So I try to avoid the conflict. I don't know if it will work for you. I just avoided that and then go with what I know will work for everybody. Okay. All right. So we have three functions here. And here we have defined the get request, the endpoint, and the function. The type of request, the endpoint, and the function. The type of request, the endpoint, and the function. So to confirm that it's working properly, I will test it with Postman and also make sure that your server is running. It does not crash. The server is running. And here I have post. So if I send the first post request, sorry, I don't have a big room. Let me make it bigger. Okay, no, like this. So I have this, and I divided mine into two. I customized it into two. Here is where I will have my response. Here, in case I want to use here. But for you, it will be divided horizontally for the first timer. So, but I think you can go to, where did I go to? You can go to setting, and yeah, settings, and where's that other part? I've forgotten where I divided it. It's been a while. But somewhere in these settings, you can divide it into two vertically, like that. So you can't do that. So let me see that the three of them are working. I'll send this request, and I get a response server error, and actually it's coming from my backend. So, and the next one is a post request for text. You know what? I think I should have all of them differently. So this is post. If I send this, I will create another one and change it to post request. So I have one get request, one post request. I can switch between the two of them like this. So here is a post request, and I think it's for, what is the text? And if I send this request, my server crashed. I think I am not getting the right endpoint. Let me see my server crash. My server crashed because response is not defined. Now, this is the challenge I was telling you. If you are using it in full, make sure okay, this is response. Yeah, if you are using it in full, make sure the full. So here I abbreviated. Because of this abbreviation, this full response will not be defined. So I will reduce this and make it res. And the same thing here, this abbreviated, I also reduce this and then save. My server should be running. Now let me look at the endpoint. This is test, this is users, patch, post, and get. So this should run now. I have a response, post request successful. I will create another one for the patch request. And I think it's for users and send. Now I have patch request successful. So our backend is working. We've been able to separate the function from the endpoints and store them in an external file. Now, there is nothing wrong with writing them here, but for it to look neat and you understand the different parts of the API. Now here, you know that the API is divided into three parts, actually four parts. But for now, you know it's divided into three parts. This part here, I'm not counting it, but this is our backend. This is the type of request. This is our endpoint. And this is the function that handles the request. So there are actually four parts that make up an API. The backend, which is the backend proper, the request type, the endpoint, and the function that handles the request, like that. So that is all. If you have a question, drop your question now. If you don't have any question, drop a thumbs up so that we'll move on to what we have for today. I didn't do much. Let me also separate these ones. I think I should create another function. What's the request type? Handle put request. Cost handle put request is equal to an async function that takes a request and response, and it has this control X V, remove this thing. All right. And the last one is the delete request. Cost handle delete request is equal to an async function res, and inside it I have this one, command X. So I'll put this one here and remove this part. Save it. Now I need to also export those ones. So handle put request is here, comma, handle delete request is here. So I'll save that, come back here, remove this function here, put fnx dot handle put request, and remove this one and say fnx dot handle delete request. So save it and confirm that my server is actually running. Okay, I did not create any link between the two of them. I did not. What I did was to create a new file, called it controllers, that's CTR. Let me rename it so that you know that it's called controller. You can call it anything, but for now I like to call my controllers. So this is controller. I just created the file, and then inside the file, which is this controller, inside here I created different function to handle the get request, and I believe you know how to create a function by now. Function to handle the post request, function to handle this. So I just created the function inside here. There is nothing here. If you look at this place, this is starting from line 1, so there's nothing in between there. Now the only thing I did again was to export the file. When I export the file here, I will import the file here. So I'm importing the file here as FNX. So you can import yours as anything, but I'm importing it as FNX. Then here where I need to call the function, I call FNX dot the function, FNX dot the second function. Now why I'm adding this FNX is because I exported all of them as an object. I exported all as an object. So if you export as an object and you put the name of the file, now additionally what I can do, no, I don't want to go there to confuse you. Just this way is easier and simpler to import. So I just created the function, export the function, import the file here, and begin to call the functions inside the file. That's all. I didn't do much. Nothing, no linking at all. Nothing much. Now, async is more like saying this function will take a while to run, or will take a while to complete, or will take a while to be fulfilled. So now, and most times you don't know whether the function will be fulfilled or it will fail or it will stay pending. Now you can't really tell. So any function that you know, you cannot tell how it will run, when it will be completed, and what will be returned. That function is actually called an async function. And because you know, sorry about the network now, because you know that it is going to be fulfilled and return something, that function will return something. So we make it an async function, and what it is returning is the promise. Promise can be it fulfilled. The promise can be it got rejected, that then it failed. The promise can be that it is pending. So you can't really tell what is going to happen with the function. So you make it an async function until it's completed, because it's going to return something. You have to wait for it to finish and then it returns. That's the need for an async function. And network, sorry about the network. Yeah, I think I am recording, but let me confirm again. Yes, I am recording. So any question before we go for what we had for today? Any question before I go? Yes, I am recording. I am recording. But you may not get the recording today, and that's normal. I've explained that also. Any question? No question. Okay, now if you want to export This is how you export. You say module dot export. Now, if you use module dot export and you put the name of the file, it means that you are exporting only one thing from this file. If you do like this, module dot export, this is the name of the file you want to export. Name of file, let me write it as name of file, like this. So this is the name of the file you want to export. If you do this, this is the only file that will be, or this is the only thing that will be exported from this file. But if you know you'll be exporting more than one, then you put it as an object, because you'll be exporting more than one thing from that file. So that is why I am using an object instead of just putting the name. So if you put only the name, it means it is only that file that will be exported. Sorry, not that file. Only that name, that particular thing. It can be a function, it can be a variable, it can be anything, but it's only that thing that would be exported. But if you know that it's going to be more than one, then you export all of them as an object. Now you can create so many files. You can put this one in a different file, put this one in a different file, put this one in a different file, whatever you want, however you want it, you can do it. It's allowed. But I want to group all my functions in one place. And I'll show you later, I'll show you why I do that and how I do it. Actually doing that. So this is how you export, like this. Okay, any other question before we continue? If there's no question, please drop a thumbs up so that we continue with what we have for today. Thank you, thank you. So let's start looking at the request one by one. We'll start with the get requests. This is the get request. All these things for now, they are not needed, so I will remove all of them. For now, they are not needed, so I will remove all of them. Here, here, here. So we just have the response that is returned back. Now, for every function, you must return something. Otherwise, the server will be hanging. So you must return a response. If you are not returning a response, it will keep hanging. That is why if you look at these things, I have it returning responses. They are all returning a response. You can't leave it empty. If you do something in your API, that function must return a response. It is either it is returning error, or it's returning successful, or it's returning redirect. It must return a response, compulsory. So anything you are doing in that function, make sure at the end you are returning a response. Like I said, the front-end developer will make their own function async. They are making it async because they know that the backend will return a promise. So you can either return to them that it failed, or you return to them that it was successful, or you return to them that it is pending. So you must return a response. Like here, we are also using async because we know that this function may go outside. It may go to another database. It may go to our own database. It may go to another backend. So we're just adding this async just in case it will go out. Now, if it goes out, we're expecting that the person who is managing that backend is also going to be sending us a response, which is actually the promise. So you must be sending back a response for everything. Whether it's successful, you send successful. If it failed, you send it failed. If it's error, you send this error. You must send a response like that. So now let's handle a get request. What I'll do is I'll just create an array. Sorry, not capital letter. I want to handle a get request. I'll create an array of what will I call it? Call it students. I'll call it student and set it to be an array. Now this array is going to have two objects, just first name and last name, nothing much. I want to believe you understand what an object is. First name, and let me just put score. I want to believe you know what an object is. So I'll duplicate this and then change this to maybe anything and say David. So here now I have an object, not an object actually, an array. So what I will do is I want to send this array. I want to also send the response message, and I want to also send the status code. So how do I do that? I already have return, response, I have the status code, I have JSON. So here I will break it and break this. So after the message, I then put the name of my array as students. So what I'm sending back is I'm sending the status code. Now you can break this if you want. Some people break it like this and then duplicate, but that's like hope that is if it's not going to confuse you. But if it will, you keep everything on one line. You keep everything on one line. At the end of the message, you put comma and you put the name of your student like that. So if it's not going to confuse you, if it's going to confuse you, you just keep it like this. But if it will not, you can then do all in one line. So I have them in one line. I am returning a response with a status code 200 and a JSON message. No, it shouldn't say server error. This time it should say successful because we are handling. Okay, so we are sending a message that says successful, and we are sending our array, which is this array. So if I save it and then go back to Postman and run a get requests here. So if I send this get request, now I am getting a response. Now the status code says 200, okay. I'm seeing the message says successful, and I'm seeing my students. And here I have the first student like this. Here I have the second student like this. So what I can do next is handle a post request. Now a get request is very easy. Get request not very easy. Sometimes it's not, but for now we're not doing anything much. So a get request is always easy. Now we can do a post request. Let's handle a post request. So the message will say successful. What do we want to do in this post request? First, we want the user to send us their name and their score. That's the first thing. We want them to send us their name and their score. How do we do that? We come here and say, first off, let me console log something. CLG request.body. I wanted to show you what request.body is before. So let me console log request.body inside this post request. So I will go to Postman and move over to the post request and then perform a post request. Because I'm console logging it, it should show in the server, but it is showing as undefined. The reason why it's showing as undefined is because I'm supposed to be sending something as a post, but I'm not sending anything. That is why it's coming as undefined. So in the body, the API is expecting something here in the body. So in the request, the body is expecting something. So I did not see that thing, and that is why it's showing undefined. Now let me do something else. I will do what will I do? So what I can do is say, if the person does not send email, no, we are doing first name, sorry. If they don't send their first name, you know what? Let me not do this one yet. Let's finish with the response here. So I'll come back to Postman. How do we add data in Postman? If I open my Postman here, I have mine divided into two. I don't know why I'm not getting it. Sorry. It's supposed to open here, and that's because I So in the body here, I'm supposed to be adding something in the body of the request, because here we are looking at the body of the request. So the user, or maybe the front end, is supposed to add something in the body of the request. So here we have params. These are all the parts of a request: the params, the authorization, the headers, and the body. These 4 parts, you use them when making your request. Your parameters, you add them in the params. Your authorization codes, your login details, you put them in the authorization. The headers will have every other details as instruction that will be in the head. And then the body is where you send the main data or the payload that you want to send. So I will click on the body. Now here is the format that I want to send that data. I want to send them as raw data, and they should be sent as what? JSON. They must be sent as JSON. None of this format. They must be sent as JSON. So when you come to the body, you select the body. Now you select that it must be raw data, not binary, not form data. It has to be raw data, and the format must be JSON, like that. All right, so here I want to add a JSON. Because it's JSON, both sides must come in quotes. So let's say I want my first name, and then the first name will be first name, whatever the name is, FFF, like that. And then I want the score. Because it's JSON, they both must appear in quotes, 400, like that. Maybe not 4,000, 400, like that. So now I have succeeded in adding these 2 data, or as an object, in the body, because I click the body first, then change that it must be raw data, and the format must be JSON. The format must be JSON. All right. So now I am sending this request to this post endpoint. If I send the request, I get this. Now in my backend, I am console logging the whole body, everything that comes in the body. So if I go back here, the body still says undefined. Now there is a reason why the app cannot read what is being sent. I'm trying to send that. The first time I didn't add any data and it did not see it. Now I have added data, it is still not seeing it. Why? Now the reason is this. Yes, okay, the score can be quoted. I can put that in quote, but that's not the problem. If I send it, I get my response. Now if I check my console log, it is still undefined. The reason is this. We are sending the data as JSON from the point where we are sending that data from a different application into a different application. Something should happen in between, from the point of being sending to the point of receiving. Something should happen in between, and that is what we call middleware. Let me put the name here. Middleware. Now a middleware, just like the name, middle and then where, middle and where. So middleware is a function that runs in the middle, in between, from the point where the request is sent to the point where the request is accepted. In between, something that anything that happens in between is called a middleware. So if you have a function that runs in between, that function is called a middleware. So here we need a function in the middle that will tell us that, okay, this data that is coming from a different application into our application. Now the data is supposed to be captured and then formatted in a way that our backend can read it. It is showing undefined because our database, our backend, cannot read it. So the middleware should format that information to a format that our backend can read it. Now this is plenty English and I understand. You don't need to be confused at all. We are not using we're going to tell our backend app.use. We're going to tell our backend to use a middleware. Before now, we're supposed to install a middleware. Normally, it's called a body passer. Now, the name body passer means it will pass whatever is sent to the body, it will pass it into our application so that our application can read it. So that is why it's called a body passer. And it's a middleware. It's a middleware because it does that in between from the point where the request is sent to the point where the request is accepted. It's in the middle. So before, we'll need to install a body passer. But right now, we will not install a body passer because Express now comes with a body passer. So if you install Express, you have automatically installed the body passer too. So we'll tell our app to use that Express body passer. So here I will say express.json and invoke it with a bracket. So here I am saying our backend app should use the Express body passer that passes JSON. That is the middleware I'm talking about. And because we are invoking it here, this tells us that it is a function. It is what? A function, because we're using parentheses to invoke the function. And that is why it is called a middleware. A middleware is a function that runs in the middle, in between the point where the response is sent to the point where the response is accepted. So now, exactly, a middleware is like a middleman, exactly. We are going to write a lot of middlewares, but understand the idea behind the middleware. A middleware means it will run in the middle. It's like the middleman between the client, which is the front end, and the back end, which is the server, like that. So it stands in the middle. So now we are going to send that request again. If I send it and I check my console, now I am seeing the data that was sent to us. Because we are console logging the whole body, that is why we are seeing the first name and we are seeing the score. This is exactly how the front end and the back end communicate. There is no magic, there is nothing done there. The front end will send the data in form of JSON, and then the middleware, which is the body passer, will interpret the data, capture it, and pass it into the server like that for us to see it. So now we know that there will be a key called first name and there will be a key called score. So what we can do in our backend, all right, what we can do in our backend is say, instead of console logging the whole request the body, we'll say we want to accept some things, const, and from the request the body. So whenever I do something like this, here I have brackets and const. So I can say I want to, this means I am destructuring. Sorry, that word is going to look sound somehow. Destructuring doesn't mean I am destroying it. No, destructuring means I am taking something from it. Destructuring means I'm taking something out of it. So what I want to do is I want to take the first name and the score out of the request, the body. So here I will type first name and then I will type score. So this is what I mean by, or what we mean by destructuring. We know that from the console there will be a first name and there will be score. So what we are saying is that we are taking the first name and the score that is inside the request the body. That is what destructuring means. You are taking something out of it. You are collecting, you are taking something from it. So this is me taking first name and score from the request the body. That is what destructuring means. So here now I can say if no first name. If no first name, return a response the status code 400 .json. Why am I having It's called res. Why? I have an error because am I using? I want to know why I can't find my error. All right, let me finish it first. The JSON. So my error says expected comma where. I'm using response, the structuring score body, if not first name. Okay. Sorry if you can see it because yes, you can use other data types. Now here, this is numbers. I can decide not to put it in quotes because it's number, and I can also add another one and call it boolean. But if it's a string, it must be in quotes like that. Now, how you put it doesn't really matter. What matters is that if you are sending it as JSON, so it is going to convert everything to JSON before sending it. So you are not, you can put them as an object, but the keys here, you must put the keys as JSON like this. But if you put it without this quote, it will not work. So, but the values, you can add the values as any other data type and then send it. It will go through. I'm trying to find out where I have error here. This is const request the body. If not first name, this is this first name. Return res dot. I'm not picking up this res. That's why. That is where I'm having that error. I'm not picking up that res. Okay, I'm not even putting the if statement. Sorry. Oh, the more you look, the less you see. It's actually the if. I'm actually saying if, but I'm not adding if. Sometimes my brain can be faster than my hand. It's going to happen to you too. The brain knows what to do, but the hand is slow, doesn't know how to do it. And you experience that too. So if there is no first name, I want you to send a message. This is called validation. You are trying to make sure that the backend will not run unless there is first name. Please add first name. And you do the same thing for score. If they don't send you a score, you want to tell them, please add your score. Please add your score. And you change this one to score. So if they send everything, it will return successful. If they don't send everything, it will not return successful. Let me keep space so that we know that they are different. So this function is going to handle our post request. We are picking the first name and the score from the request the body. Then we are validating to make sure that they send the first name. If you don't send the first name, return please add first name. If you don't send the score, return please add score. And then you will save this. We'll save it. And when we save it, and we'll run a request. So I'll come back to Postman. Now I added these names. I will send. It's successful. But if I remove this first name, now there is no first name, and I send it, it says please add first name. If I remove the score and send, now it is throwing error because of this is empty. Sorry, let me add it back. So here I have return first name. If I add first name without the score and send, the server returns please add score. So like I said, you must be returning something. You must be returning a response at every point. So that is why validation is very, very important. Because if you don't validate, I'm sorry, this server crashed. Yeah, it's not a valid JSON. Yeah, I understand. So what I can do is cancel it and restart it again because of that mistake I did in my server. So here, my server will crash if you are not sending the right data. But because we don't want our server to crash because of one user, imagine you build a software that will be used by different users all over Nigeria, and then one user somewhere is submitting an empty form that is capable of crashing your website. Because to them, they don't know that submitting an empty form will crash your backend. It will crash the whole app. Most of these errors that you see happening to mobile apps are actually from users. They are the ones actually making most apps to have issues, but they don't know it. So which is why you validate and you return a response at every point in time. Now I'm also going to show you other ways to handle it so that your server doesn't crash at any point. So here we're accepting first name and score, and we're making sure that if you're not sending first name and score, return a response. But if you are sending to us, what we want to do now is pick this array, which is array of students. So we'll pick an array. Should I do it? Yes, I'll do it. Now we want to send an array. That array should have these things, including the one that will be sent. So what we want to do is, when we pick first name and score, we want to send it, or you know what I can do is add it up. So what I can do now is say, there are so many ways to do it. I'm looking for the way that will not confuse you. So what I can say is, come here, take the students array dot push to the student array the whole of this object. I think this way is simple. So what I'm doing is that I am adding whatever will be sent from the user to this student array, and then I will return it back here by adding students here. So the first time, the students array here will just be 2 objects because I'm just getting the student array. The second time, it's going to be 2 objects, including this object that the user will send back to me. So how do I do that? I'll come here. This is the function. I'll come here. Let me add something like Samson, and then send. No, the score has to be there. You must send the score, otherwise it will return. So I send it. Now I have 3 items. So I have this first one for David, this one to David. I had to David. Why? Let me add this to be what do I call it? Joy, and save it. So I've sent this. So I have the one for David, and I have the one for Joy, and I have the one for Samson. So what are we doing? We are accepting the post request from the body. We are accepting the first name and the last name. We are validating that there is a first name. We are validating that there is a score. Then we are picking the student array and pushing into it this object that was gotten from the request of body. And then we are sending back a response here. There's no return, but let's add return. We are returning a response with a status of 200, and then a JSON message that says successful, and then the student array. So that is why we then have 3 items. So if I send it, I have this. If I change this thing to maybe Gilbert and send it, now I have how many? 4. You see, I am pushing to that array. I am pushing to that array. Anytime I add, I can add another one. Let me add another one. I will change this to 100, not 100, like 10. I will put, whose person's name should I put here now? Who will I see their name? Chinedu. Let's put Chinedu here. I'll put Chinedu here. And then I'll send. Now you see it's growing. We started by adding Samson. We added Gilbert. Now we've added Chinedu to the array. Now the array is growing longer and longer. If we come here, this point, when we got to the first time, we got just 2 objects. If I send it now, I'm getting more than 2 objects because I have added new users. I've added new people like that. So do you understand what is going on inside this function? Or do you want to ask a question? Look at the function very well. Do you understand what's going on inside this function, or do you want to ask a question? Look at the function very well. Do you understand what is going on inside that function? The screen is too small. Oh my. I've tried to make it bigger. I don't know if this is big enough. Oh my, it's very big on my end now, and I don't think you will see everything. Let me remove this distraction and keep it like this. So is this okay? Is this screen size okay? This person that said okay. Is the screen size okay? Okay, let me throw more light on the push. Now, push is an array method. If we come here to, what is it called? Array method references. Array method references here. There are so many array methods, so many of them. Now we used one which is the push. Where is it? Here, push. Push adds new elements, push adds new elements to the end of an array and returns the new length of that array. So what we are doing, we are simply adding new element as an object into this student array. That is what push is doing. Push is every time we pick a new object and we add it here. Every time we take a new object and we add it here. Every time we take a new object and we add it here. So that is what we are doing with push request. So what I can do is save this and start again. For those who say they don't understand Postman, Postman. Now, for Postman, like I said, you don't need to know anything about Postman. You just need to know how to use Postman. There is a lot Postman can do. That's not your business. You don't need to bother about it for now because you are just starting out. So if you install Postman, you just open Postman. Now, Postman might require you to create an account before you use it. So if you have a Gmail, you can use your Gmail to create the account. And that is all it needs. It's asking me to upgrade. I'll update later. So you create an account with Postman. Now, all you are interested in is this plus sign. Every other thing is secondary. There are so many things it can do, but for now it's secondary. Postman is just competing with other softwares. There are so many softwares you can use to do this, but I prefer to use Postman. There are so many other softwares, but I like using Postman. I heard there's another Postman that has been built as an extension inside VS Code. I don't like that. I prefer to use it as a standard. So here, this is the button you are interested in. You want to create a request. You click the plus sign. It will bring out so many things. For now, you're not interested in all these plenty things. You want to know the type of request that you are sending, the URL of the request, and send. Then the response will be here. If you want the body, it will be here. For me, I divided my own vertically. But for you as a new user, yours will be divided horizontally. this part will be at the top, this response will be under it. That's what you will see. So like I said, you are interested in the request type, the URL, and the send button. The response will appear here, the body will appear here if you are sending anybody. So I want to send a GET request to localhost, and the port is 5000. If I send this request, I will get this endpoint does not exist because we don't have, are we not handling it? I thought we were handling, okay, we're not handling the home route. There is no home route. We're starting from post. So that is why I'm getting that, but you understand what I mean. This is supposed to tell me welcome to the server. So let's move to /post. We're adding the endpoint now, post, and you send. You get a response. The response is coming. You get the message that has been sent, and you get the student array, which is what we are sending in our post here. So this is where we are handling post request. So our post request is this, handle post request. This is the endpoint. You call post, handle post request will run. So when you make a GET request to post, handle post request will run. So we come here. This is handle GET request. Sorry, I'm just mixing it up. Sorry, GET request rather. Handle GET request. So handle GET request is going to be returning a response with a status code of 200 and a JSON message. Now, this is the message that will say successful, and it will be returning the student array. This is the student array. And inside the student array, you have just two objects, their first name and their score. So that is why when you send this request, you see the message that was being sent to you, successful, which is this message, and the student array. If you click here, you will see the student array be sent back to you here. So we have the student array here. So that's for GET request. But you can click the plus sign again to create another type of request, which is a post request, and it is going to be localhost /test, like this. So if I send this, it will return a response. Please add your first name. Because we are not adding anything, it is telling us please add your first name. Now you can change the message however you want. You can say first name is required, however you want the message. It must not be this way that I added it here. You can add the message however you want. So FNX, I just named it. You can name it anything. The same way we are bringing in express and storing it inside this variable called express. I am also bringing this file called controller. You know inside this controller, I'm exporting these things. So what I'm doing is I am bringing this file and what is inside it, everything that is inside it, and I'm storing it inside anything. You can call it anything. So before I can access each of these, I need to call the file first and then call one of these functions. So the file now, I can also call it controller here if I want. I can also call it controller here if I want. So what I can then do is instead of using FNX, I would then say controller dot, this is GET request. So this controller now is this controller, the file. So what I did was to import the file, bring in the file, and store it inside a variable called controller. The reason why I use FNX is FNX for me, that's the short form for function. So I call FNX function. Whenever I see FNX, FXN, sorry, I call it function. But you don't have to call it that. You can call it anything you want. So I can call it controller. That way, it will then be controller dot the function dot one of those functions. Then these are all the functions inside there. You can click post request and change this one again from controller dot, the function will be patch request, and then you can change this one from FXN. So that FXN was just my abbreviation. It has nothing to do with backend. And this is a put request here. And so here it's going to be controller dot delete request. So like this. If I run this function again, send, I'll still get the same request. Now it's function. So the FNS was just my abbreviation or my own variable. You can create your own variable, anything you want to call it. So any other question? No question. Let's do one. This one might be a little bit confusing, but we have to do it. We have to do it. We have to. Let's complete this one. So I want to add the name because it's asking me to add first name. I want to add the first name, and the only part you can add data to be sent is in the body. You have to add it in the request.body because the backend is expecting it from the body of the request. And like I said, you can write this in full. If you write it in full, this has to be in full like this. So you can also write this one in full as response. If you write it in full, these ones have to be in full also. These responses has to be in full. So whatever you choose to write, whatever you want, make sure that the names are matching. Now you can also call it any other thing. You can call it AAAA. It knows that the first one is response. Sorry, this is not AAA. You can call this one BBB. It knows that the first one is response, request. The second one is response. So whatever you can rename it to anything you like, but the backend knows that the first one is a request. The second one is the response. So if I still handle this, let me do it here so that where am I doing get request here? So I'll change this to AAA BBB, and then change this to BBB. So like I said, by default, the backend knows that the first thing in the function is the request. The second thing is the response. So if I come back here, let me see that my server is running. My server is running. And if I make that get request, send, I'm still getting a request. So most of these variables are just we naming it, but you can name it anything you want. But most times you name it something that if you are working in a team, your team will see the name and they know what you are referring to. If this function was to be very long and down, we'll put BBBBB, your project manager will ask you what is going on. Do you need deliverance? Because they need to see the variable name and understand what it is. That is why we use request and response, or use rec and response like this. So I'm back to where I was. Let me be sure that my server is still running. Yes. So that is it. And back to here, we need to send our first name in the post request. I want to believe that you remember what a post request is. So we need to send first name. So we come here, we select the body because it has to be inside the body. We select the body. It has to be raw data type, and make sure that it is in JSON. So these are the three things: the body, the raw, and the JSON. So here you can add the first name, and I'll call it, what do I call it now? Which person's name should I put? Abigail. So I have Abigail, and if I send it, it will say, please add your score. And like I said, you must be sending response at every point in time because the front end will be waiting for response. Now, if I don't send a response, the front end will keep hanging. That's what will happen. But I will show you that not today. Let me be fast so I can finish up this. So here I'll put comma and I'll put the score, and the score can be 90. So if I send it, now my array is longer. It now has added this one to it. I can change this to Ichel and maybe give her 20 scores because she didn't really do plenty of assignment. And then send it back. Now we have 4 objects. We've added the first one. This is the first 2. We added this one and we added this one. Like that. So that's for that. Now what we can do is we can decide to get only one. If we want, we can decide to get only one. We can decide to delete, but for now we can't handle that here. So what we can do is the patch request. We can handle the patch request. Do we handle the patch request though? Now, what we can do is add them with IDs. A question. Yes. If you are going to use the body. Now, I want to show you how to use one. Now, that is how to use this one called params. Params. How do we use params? Now, let's say we want to get one user. You know, before I taught you higher array methods, which is one of them is filter. We can decide to fetch only one person here. We can decide to fetch only one person. So we want to use params. And the params we want to use, let's add it here, which is going to be ID. Sorry, the ID of this user will be 1. We can add the ID of this user to be 2, like that, like this. So what we can then do, we can generate this ID randomly, but I don't want to go into that. What we can then do is create an endpoint to fetch only one person by their ID, to fetch or to get only one person by their ID, not the whole of their data, just by their ID. How do we do that? We'll come here and create another GET request, app.get. If there is a GET request on user, I want you to run a function get. Sorry, let me create the function. Do we have time? Yeah, we still have a little time, small time. I'll be done. So I can come here and say const handle get one user by ID is equal to an async function that accepts the request and the response, and here. So what we want to do is get the ID, const ID, from the request.params. So sorry, I have to put equal to. On this post request, we are getting data from the request body. Let me type it in full. So for those who are seeing it for the first time, before they ask me what is res and rec. So change this to request. Yes, so here we are getting data from the request body. Now here we get params from the request params. Params is short for parameters. And the parameter we are looking for is the ID. You can add anything as your parameter. This score and this first name can also be your parameters if you want, but they are added in a different place. So how do we add parameters? Here, where we define users, let me say I've not exported the function. Let me export it. I will export it here. Yes. So, and I will bring it in here, controller, sorry, it's not supposed to be there. It should be controller dot handle get user by ID and put comma here. So here now we'll put /ID. The reason why I am adding this is that is a second part of the endpoint. The reason why I am adding this colon before the ID is to tell the backend that this ID is not hard-coded. This ID will be changing in values. That is why I added colon. If I remove colon, then it means it is /user/ID. But if I put colon, it means that this ID here is a placeholder for the data the user will add. How is that done? So let me show you. I will create another one. It's a GET request and it's /user, I think so, /user. And if I put / here, then I can add anything I add here becomes the ID that I am calling here. So let me just show you. Let me show you. We have the ID here. Let's console log. I'll console log the params here. Let's leave the ID first. I'm console logging the whole request of params. Request. So I'm console logging the whole request of params. Sorry, why is it showing me? Okay. I didn't spell the request very well. That's why it's appearing like this. Please, it's my fault. It's not anything. I didn't spell it well. So here, we know we are telling the backend that there will be a params called ID. Now, if you call it ID, it means here you must put the key ID. If you call it something like slug, it means here you must put slug. But let's assume that you don't know what it is. You can remove this. Say you don't know what it will be called. So let's put this as ID and save it. If I come here and send this request, it says this endpoint does not exist user and this. Let's confirm what we called it. We called it get request user / the ID. So why is it saying it does not exist? This is users get request user. Okay, I put comma here. Sorry, I'm not supposed to add that comma. All right, so let me try again. I'll send. Now you see that the server is hanging. The reason why this is hanging is because the backend is not sending any response. So if you look here in this function, there is no response being sent in this function. But let's check what we are console logging. Now we are console logging the whole params. This is the whole params, and inside the params we have ID. The reason why it's called ID is because here we are telling it to expect ID. We can change it to slug and save it. So if I send this request again, it's hanging, and if I check here, it is now called slug. We can change it to anything you want. I can change it to access bank and save it. So if I come back and send the request, then you see that I have access bank. Now params are anything you add here. If you can do comma and add another one. So what I can do is I can add 2 params if I want. I can add 3 params if I want. So whatever you add at the top here, the URL are called params. So now I've added, this is the endpoint, this is the params, the first params, and this is the second param. So if I send this request and then check my console log, you see I have the first param, access bank, the second param, whatever this is, like that. So I want you to send me a thumbs up so that I know that you are still following. Just drop a thumbs up if you are still following this explanation of params and all of that. Params, all right. Thank you. So what we want to do is we want to send the ID in the params and find the person that has that ID and return that student only. That's all we want to do. We want to accept the ID, use the ID and find the person that has that ID and return that person only. So what we can do is say const ID is equal to the requests dot params. Now in the request dot params, we want to pick the student array. We say const user, the user will be equal to the student array dot filter. And I want to believe you have seen filter before. So filter comes with a callback function. So we take each of the students and we say return the student where each student.id is equal to the ID that is passed in to us. So we are saying filter the student array, call each object, call them each. So return the one where the ID of each object is equal to the ID that was passed in the params. So here we're then going to send a return. Now what we can do is say if no student has that ID. We can say if no student has that ID, if no student, if no user rather. So if you don't find the user, return a response. Sorry, I know we've entered backend, but gradually we're gonna get there. Return a response. I like calling if, but I will not put the keyword if. Response.status, and the status should be 404 not found. .json, and the JSON should have a message that says student not found. But if you find it, return a response. You know what? Let me just copy all of this one and edit it. We're almost done. I have 2 returns. I'll remove one. Return a response with the status code 200 and then return successful as the message. Return successful as the message and then return the user that was found. So what we are doing is we are picking the ID from the request.params. We are using that ID to filter all the students and return the ID that is matching the ID that is sent to us. Then if you don't find this user, return that the user cannot be found with a status code of 404. But if you find the user, return a status code of 200, a message of successful, and the user. So I'll save this, come back to see that my server is running. Come back to see that my server is running, and then go to Postman. Now the ID after the users. This is important. Make sure that the format you followed here, after the users is the ID. After the user is the ID. So follow that format when passing in your params. So after the user is the ID 1. If I send it, it returns the person that the ID is 1. Now I can change it to the ID 2 and send it, it returns the person that the ID is 2. If I change it to 3 and send, it returns an empty array. Okay, the reason why it returns an empty array is because that is a high array method we are using. So instead of saying if not, we can say if the length of the array is less than 1. So that means it's empty. Less than 1 means the array is empty. So now if I send it, it will say student not found. But if I pass in an ID of 2 and send it, we have the student with the ID 2. And if I pass in 1 and send it, it returns the student with the ID 1. So ladies and gentlemen, what is your question? Now, I know a lot of you have questions. Questions. Ask your question. Looking at this code here, is there anything in that code you don't know what it is doing, or you don't know why it is there? Now is your time. Looking at this code, is there anything here that you don't know what it is doing and why it is there? Well, I understand it's possible to be lost. So what I'll do is I'll push this code to GitHub. You study it, and I'll give you an assignment. Let's see whether you can do your own. But ask your question now. Ask your question. If you have a question, ask now. Is there any part of this code you don't know what it is doing? Okay. No question. Ask your question. This is the get by ID. I understand that get by ID can be difficult. And let's talk about the get requests. You only get. Now, this is exactly what you are going to be building. Now, this is the only get. And we are returning a message with the student array. Now, here we are doing a post request. Okay, your Postman, you didn't see the plus sign. Be sure that if you're not seeing the plus sign, find anywhere you see workspace. Click on workspace. Anywhere around, maybe at the top, in the middle, anywhere you see workspace, click on workspace. Yes, the video, I'm going to share this video, but after it has been worked on, I'll send you the video, work on it. So I'll also drop an assignment so that when you watch the video, you try out the same thing and see if you understand it on your own. Don't do copy and paste. Whatever you do, make sure that you understand what you are doing. Study it very well. You understand what you're doing. Backend is not about cramming. There are some things you can cram, but you don't have to cram them. There are some things you should not cram. You should understand what is going on. Okay, the different type of requests. Yes, I will share the code. Now, the different type of requests. A get request. Any request you make to the back end to give you something, that is a get request. Any request you make to the back end to give you something, that is a get request. A post request. Any request you make to the backend, you are sending data to the backend to take that data and save for you. That is a post request. You are sending data to the backend to take that data and save it. That is a post request. So the backend will accept your data the same way we are doing here. We are accepting this data that is being sent to the backend. We are accepting it and we are saving it by adding it to an array that we have. So we are adding it to an array. That is a post request. A patch request. A patch request and a put request are almost the same thing. Now, they are about editing data that has already been saved. You know that data was first saved when you did a post request. But patch and put are more like editing data that has already been saved. So when you want to edit part of the data, not all of the data. Part of the data that was saved. For example, let's say our first name and score has been saved. If you want to edit only first name, then you are making a patch request. If you want to change only the score, then you are making a patch request. But if you want to update all of them, then that is a put request. So a put request is remove all the data, replace them with this new one. That is a put request. But a patch request is take this data and update part of it, not all of it, just a part of it. That is a patch request. Then a delete request is if you are asking the backend to delete what has been saved on the backend. That is a delete request. So I think I answered that correctly. Now for those who are asking how to post to GitHub, I was virtually waiting so that I will have everybody, but I don't think I will ever have everybody. I still don't have much persons, but for those who are asking how to push to GitHub, like I said, I have not taught you how to use Git and GitHub, and it's deliberate. I'm keeping that for now. Now, if you want to push your files to GitHub, first thing you need to do is save all your codes and open the folder where you have the codes. So I have my codes here. These are my codes. All of these are what I want to push to GitHub. So what I will do, okay, what's the question again? Exactly. The get request means the data has already been saved. You are asking to get it back. Or maybe you are not the one that saved it. It's there. So you are just making it, telling the database to give you something. Now, it is the database that will tell you whether what you are asking for is there or it is not there. Your own is to just make the request, give me something. If it gives you, fine. If it doesn't give you, that's fine also. That's a get request. So to push to GitHub, you get to see all the files you want to push to GitHub. These are my files I want to push. And then I will go over to GitHub. This is GitHub. I will come over to GitHub here. Either you click on this green button that says new, or you click on this plus sign that will say add new repo. They are doing the same thing. So a repository is the same thing as a folder, but GitHub calls it repository, but we call it folder. So a repo or a repository is the same thing as a folder on GitHub. So you create a new repository by clicking on new. Now you give your repository a name. So I can call this one, what should I call it now? Let me call it whatever, or any name. You can call it, sorry, I'm not spelling very well this period. Any name, however you want. You can give space and so on and so forth, like this. You can call it anything, but the most important thing is make sure that it is on public. Make sure that it is on public, otherwise people will not see it. Only you and those that you invite will see it. So, but if you are paid for it, keep it on private. But for now, keep everything on public and then create. So that is how to create the folder. When you create the folder, the next thing you want to do is click on upload an existing file. Here, you click on this upload an existing file. I will teach you how to use these commands later, but if you know how to use it, go ahead and use it. But if you don't, click on upload an existing file. I will click it. Then here I will drag and drop all the files I want to push to GitHub, all of them. So what I will do is you can drag them one by one. You can select all of them and put them. So don't select the node modules. Leave the node modules. leave the .env, but you can select every other thing and add them one by one. Sorry, you can add them one by one. You can add all of them at the same time, your choice. I don't know why I can't select again. Doing drag and drop is okay. Drag that one, drag this one. Is this, oh, this is not my current this thing. This is backend 2. Backend 2 is the one I'm working on. Sorry, I'm pushing the wrong file, so I can remove these ones. This is the file I meant to push, today's file, backend 2. Okay, I have an issue with drag and drop. Click this one, click this one, click this one, and then drag and drop. So now I have only unlock. Where is the other one now? Put this one. Put this one. Put this one. So you should see all the files that you want to upload here. Please avoid uploading node modules to GitHub. GitHub will not even allow you to upload node modules. And also avoid uploading .env file on GitHub. So once you're done uploading, click on commit. That's all. You have pushed to GitHub. That is all. The next thing you can do is share the link, which is this link. Yes. After pushing to GitHub, you can delete the files from your system. It's possible you can just delete the files from your system, but you should be able to share the code. You copy the link here. That's how you share the code. You copy the link and you drop the link as your assignment on Google Classroom, or you drop it on the assignment topic, anyone like that. So that's all, and that's how to push to GitHub. Any more questions before we call it a day? So for the new student, you said you are ready for all the assignment. It's a 2 weeks assignment because you joined us 2 weeks after. So should I go ahead and add all the assignments? Now, you can drop that in the new students topic so you know that I know to go ahead and add all the assignments. That's it. Now, any question? If there is no question, drop a thumbs up so that we can call it a day. Any questions? If there's no question, drop a thumbs up so we'll call it a day. All right, thank you. I will drop the assignments, and also I'll share the code with you. Review the codes. It's not hard. They're not hard. And one thing is, if you understand how to build backend for, let's say, a school, automatically you can build a backend for a hospital. You can also build a backend for a mobile, a banking app. You can also build a backend for, which one again? I'm remembering. Any backend at all. So backend are related. You just need to understand how to build one. If you can build one, then you understand how to build others too. So that's all. See you guys tomorrow. These videos is not in my hand, but I will try to make sure you get it Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday latest. Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday latest, you should get the video. That's all. All right. See you again next week, Saturday. Bye.